All right, in this video, we are going to talk about local extrema. So a function has a local minimum at a number if there's an open interval containing the number such that the y value is the lowest point on the graph in that open interval. So that would be called a local minimum. And then we have a similar definition for local maximum. So what is then a local maximum or local minimum, right? If we take a look at this example right here, we have the graph of a function, and we've previously talked about absolute maximums and absolute minimums. You can see that this graph has no absolute maximum; it just keeps going up, and it has no absolute minimum either. The graph just keeps going down like this. Okay. This is the graph of this function here, by the way. Right? So this function has no absolute max, it has no absolute min, but it does have a local maximum here and a local minimum here. Okay, so one way to think about that is that this point up here at the very top of this hill, basically here, is not the highest point on the graph. There are plenty of points on the graph that are higher than it, okay? But it is the local minimum, and so how I like to think about that is if I zoom in the graph enough, right, and keep that point in the middle, okay? It can't be on the edge. If I put it on the edge, I can make any point the highest point on the graph that we can see, right? But that's not allowed. Just think about it, that point as being it's got to be in the middle of the screen inside here. So if I can zoom in enough to where that's the highest point that I see, right, that means that that point will be a local maximum. Okay, so that's the highest one that we can see if we zoom in enough. Again, you have to keep it in the middle. Okay, and likewise, a local minimum would be a point on the graph where if we zoomed in enough, right, it would be the lowest point in the graph. Again, you got to keep the point in the middle, not on the edge. Okay, so that would be a local minimum, a local low point. It's not the lowest point on the graph, right, because there are a lot of points that are lower, right, down over here. But if we zoom in enough, right, we can put that point in the middle of the zoomed in window, and it will be the lowest point. Okay. You can see on Desmos, right, it will kind of snap to those local maxes and local mins. Okay. Let's take a look at a point that is not a local max or local min, right? This point right here at 0, 0. So you might say, well, hey, I haven't zoomed in enough, right? Again, you got to keep that point in the middle. You can't put it on the edge to test to see whether it's a local maximum or a local minimum. But you can see here, this would not indicate that it's a local maximum nor a local minimum, because there are some points in the picture that are a little bit smaller, right? They're lower down than this point at 0, 0. And there's some points that are higher up, okay? Now you may say, well, maybe I'm not zoomed in enough. I'm going to zoom in really, really close, right? Super close to this thing, right? But the thing is, no matter how much you zoom in here, right, if that point's in the middle, not on the edge of the screen, right, there's always going to be some points that are a little bit higher than that, always going to be some points that are a little bit lower than that. Okay, so this point is neither a local maximum nor a local minimum. All right, so those local high points and local low points are called local maxes and local mins right here. Okay. And we are just going to be identifying them from the graph for right now. It's not until calculus that you can just use straight up algebra to figure out the local maxes and local mins. But if you have to take that class, then that is most likely one of the things that you'll be doing in that class. Okay, so let's take a minute and just talk about how these questions are asked in almost any setting. They're going to ask you for either one or two things. They're going to either ask you for the point, that is both numbers. So they're going to ask you for the x number and the y number, the first coordinate and the second coordinate, right? Sometimes, though, they will just ask you for the y coordinate. And also, although it seems kind of less rare than the other things. They might ask you at which x coordinates do the points occur. All right, so for the problems that we have to work, it's pretty straightforward. If you take a look in this section, these are the Newton problems that we have to do. So here it's use the graph to determine local extrema. So if I click on that, you can see they have the points here, and here they're asking for the point. It says the local maximum is at the point, and it's pretty clear they want you to give both the x coordinate and the y coordinate. So the local maximum would be up here, right? And you can see that's at 1, 2, so you put 1 and 2 here, right? And the local minimum, again, they want the point. So that's one way they could ask it for the point. All right, and then if you look over here, when they ask about absolute maximum and absolute minimum, okay, here they just ask for the value. It says what is the y value of the absolute maximum of the function. So the absolute maximum would be at this point over here, right? That y value is 12, right? So you would just plug the number 12 into the box there, okay? So that's basically that's the two kind of most common ways that you'll see that question asked. They'll either ask for the point, in which case they want both numbers, or if they say, usually when they mention the word value, they want the absolute maximum value or the absolute minimum value, right? Then they want the y coordinate, and that sometimes is confusing. But here you can see the way they ask the questions, they specifically say, hey, what is the y value of the absolute maximum? All right, so that is it for this video.